Team Tiger Jumpstart Monday. Number 1, divide the mixed numbers. Remember, when you divide mixed numbers, you need to do backwards C, and then keep change flip, which is, remember, flip is a big word for reciprocal. So backwards C first. 2 times 6 would make 12, plus 1 would be a 13 over 6, because my denominator stays the same, divided by 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 makes 5 over 2. From here, we follow keep, change, flip. Remember, a big word for flip would be reciprocal. So you have 13 over 6 times 2 over 5. 13 times 2 is 26. 6 times 5 is 30. If you go a step further, you can simplify. And what can you take from both? You could simplify by dividing both by 2. So what times 2 is 26? 13. What times 2 is 30? 15. So my final answer would be 13/15. Number 2. What is the product of 2 4/10 and 50? Remember, product means to multiply. If you multiply with a decimal, you act like there is no decimal point. So you have 24 times 50. Okay, I'm going to do a shortcut. So I'm going to cover up this 0, and then I'll bring it back at the end. So 5 times 4 would make 20. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 makes 12. And then I'm going to add this 0 that I had covered up. From here, I need to go back and count my decimal digits. So go back into your problem, count any decimal digit that comes after a decimal point. We only have 1, so we'll back it up 1. So the final answer is actually 120. Number 3. Which choice shows the numbers in order from least to greatest? From least to greatest. Remember, if you see straight bars around a number, that is its absolute value. That's an actual math problem you need to solve. So the absolute value from 0 to negative 28 would just be a 28. So let's remove all of these and put 28. From here, I want to go least to greatest. So right now, looking at A, my least value, they said, was 0. Then they went to a positive. Then they went to a negative and back to a positive. Remember, if I'm going least to greatest, least would be negatives first. Then I would go to positives. So I'm not going to go with A. On B, they went from a negative to 0 to a positive of 24 and a positive 28. That is correctly ordering it from least to greatest. Check the other two in case there is an error. We went from a positive 28 to a negative to 0 back to a positive. That is not the correct order. And on D, they went from a positive 28 to a positive 24 to 0 to a negative. They went positive to negative, which would be greatest to least. So again, that is not correct. When you're done with your jump start, put it in your folder or your binder, or go drop it off. Make sure your name is on it. And then we're going to move into page 235. Go ahead and pause the video for the students to get settled. Once everyone's ready, we'll be on page 235 and you can press play. We're looking at topic 4, lesson 8. In today's lesson, you will be able to identify what we call dependent and independent variables. Remember, a variable is a letter that represents a number in a math problem. Let's take a quick look at dependent and independent. What does it mean if I depend on someone? If you depend on someone, it means you rely on them. Like, you can't do anything solo. You're always looking for where they can help you. So a dependent is going to rely on someone or something to help it out. If I'm independent, what does that mean? You want to do things all by yourself, okay? So you can do things alone. You can be independent. So here's my difference between dependent and independent. Look at the explainant. Max is shipping a present to his grandmother. Looking at part A, what are 3 factors that will affect the weight of the box? What are 3 factors that will not affect the weight? Now, I think on your workbook, you have a box, like you have 2 boxes that have A and B. So mine look a little different. So I'm going to just put mine right here, okay? So can you come up with 3 factors that will affect the weight of the box? I would say the size of the box. Why would that affect it? The weight. Because if I have a large box, obviously I'm probably going to possibly have a heavy weight, okay? What else? Box materials. So in other words, whatever you put inside the box can also affect the weight. Or excuse me, technically what your box is made of, that would be my box materials. So what the box is made of can affect the weight. And then I just gave away the 3rd one. Items in the box can affect the weight. Here are 3 factors that will affect the weight of this box. Okay, then it said, what are 3 factors that would not affect the weight? So here we go again. Think of anything that would not affect the weight of the box. So maybe the color of the box. What else? What about the day the box was made? Can you come up with another one? What about the name of the box manufacturer? The name of the box manufacturer. So again, the first question, we listed 3 factors that could possibly affect the weight of the box. The second question, list factors that would not affect the weight of the box. Okay, look at part B. How can the size of the box and the contents of the box affect the weight of the box? So on this one, we can just talk it through. You don't have to write anything down. So let's just think about this. How might the size of the box and the contents of the box affect the weight of the box? Well, thinking about the size of the box, the bigger the box is, the more material is used to make the box, which makes the box heavier, right? Okay, for contents, they're talking about like what type of material the box is made from, okay? So if the contents of the box are heavy, the box may not need to be made from a different material, which can make the box heavier. Go ahead and look at page 236. Remember, we're talking about dependent and independent variables. Dependent means I depend on someone or I rely on someone or something. Independent means I can be solo. I can do things on my own. And remember, a variable is a letter in the alphabet representing a number. So look at example 1. An orchard sells apples by the pound. Each day, P pounds of apples are sold and the amount of money taken in, which is M, is recorded. Which variable, P or M, depends on the other variable? So a dependent variable changes in response to another variable. An independent variable causes the dependent variable to change. So let's think about this one more time. They gave me the variables M for money and P for pounds. So here's the thing. My money is not going to know what it is until it's sold by the pounds, right? So the money is relying on the pounds to be sold for it to know what it's going to be worth. So my money is the dependent. It's depending on the pounds that will be sold. The pounds, they don't care about the money, okay? They stand alone. They can be independent. Page 236, example 1, try it. A baker used a certain number of cups of batter, B, to make pancakes. Which variable, P, the pancakes, or B, the batter, is the dependent variable? So think about this. If you have pancake batter and you're making pancakes, which one is depending on the other? Hopefully you're thinking that the pancakes are depending on the batter because you don't know how many pancakes you can make until you use the batter. The batter doesn't care how many pancakes it can make. It's a batter, okay? So P is the dependent variable because it depends on the batter to know how many pancakes it can actually make. All right, from here, we're going to go ahead and turn to page 238. Page 238. Concept. A dependent variable changes in response to another variable, called an independent variable. An independent variable causes the change in a dependent variable. It is independent because its value is not affected by other variables. On page 238, look underneath, do you understand? What does it mean for one variable to be dependent on another variable? So if I am dependent, that means the dependent variable changes in response to the other variable, which would be the independent variable. Look at number 2. Jake and Viola record the number of miles, M, they bike to help track the number of calories, C, they burn in an hour. Viola says the number of calories they burn is the dependent variable. Do you agree? So think about this. If you go biking, does your bike care about your calories, or does your calories care about the biking? Okay, so which one's technically changing? The one that changes is your calories because it's depending on how far you bike. The bike doesn't really care. So yes, Viola is correct. We agree because my number of calories burn depending on how many miles they bike. Can you write that, please? The number of calories burn depends on the miles biked. So the calories are depending on the miles that you bike. Because the calories will change after so many miles or so many half miles and things like that. Okay, let's skip to number 4. On 4 through 11, it has you writing down which variable is your independent and which variable is the dependent. So looking at number 4, the amount of money M earned if T raffle tickets are sold. So think about this. Which one is depending on the other? My money is going to change due to however many raffle tickets are sold. So remember, the one that changes, that is your dependent. So M is dependent, and T would be independent. Number 5, the number of hours worked and the amount of money earned. Which one is going to make like the biggest change? The amount of money that you earn. Okay, so my dependent again is M, which is the amount of money that you earn, and it's depending on how many hours you work. So the independent is the variable H. Okay, number 6, the number of shelves S in a bookcase and the number of books B the bookcase can hold. Which one of these would change? Which one of these has the biggest change? Well, my number of books can change, but my number of shelving is probably going to be the same. So my dependent, the one that's going to do changing, is the books. Your independent variable will be the shelves. Number 7, the number of pages P you read in your book in H hours. Which one of these is going to have the biggest change? Your number of hours or the number of pages that you're going to be reading? Hopefully you said the number of pages. So your dependent variable, the changing variable, is the variable P because it depends on how many hours you're reading your book to know how many number of pages you've read. So the independent variable would be H, hours. Number 8, the number of gallons G of water a garden hose produces after running M minutes. So on this one, which is going to have the biggest change? The number of gallons that I water in a garden or my number of minutes? Which one is relying on the other one? Hopefully you know that the dependent, so the one that is relying on the other, would be the gallons of water. Why? Because you don't know how many gallons of water you're going to use until you run it for a certain amount of minutes. So the one that's changing is your gallons of water. It's relying on how many minutes you run the water. So independent variable would be M. Look at number 9. The number of peaches Y a farmer harvests in X bushels. Okay, so which one of these is depending on the other? Which one's going to have the biggest change? The number of peaches is going to change depending on how many bushels the farmer is going to harvest. So the one that's depending on the other is your peaches. So dependent is the variable Y. Independent is the variable x. 2 more to go. The number of hours, h, you spend driving at a speed of r miles per hour. Which one of these do you think is going to be more dependable? It's depending on the other to know what it would be. Your number of hours would be depending on the speed you're going in miles per hour. So dependent would be the variable h. Independent would be the variable of r. Okay, look at number 11. Can you come up with 2 independent variables that could result in a change of a monthly electric bill? Can you come up with 2 independent variables that could result in a change in a monthly electric bill? So one could be the amount of electricity used. The second one could be changes in the cost of electricity. Once you have that, we'll move on to page 239. If you need more time, you can pause the video and go back so students can finish page 238. All right, looking at page 239, you're currently at the practice and problem solving. I need you to do the same thing that we just did. So on numbers 12 through 15, read the scenario and see if you can determine which one is the dependent variable and which one is the independent variable. Remember, the dependent is going to have a change to it. It will change depending on the other variable. So go ahead and pause the video for the students to complete numbers 12 through 15. Give them about 2 to 3 minutes, and then we can go over the answers. Number 12. The pages P in a book and the weights W of the book. Which one do you think is going to have the biggest change? So depending on how many pages are in a book, does that affect the weight? Or is the weight just by itself and it does not matter how many pages are in the book? Which one's gonna change? Hopefully you said the weight. So the dependent variable is W, which is the weight of the book. And it depends on how many pages are in the book. So the independent variable, which stands alone, would be the pages. So the variable P. Number 13. The number of hamburgers H sold and the dollar amount of sales S taken in. Which one do you think has the biggest change? Which one is depending on the other one in order for it to change? The dollar amount of sales is depending on how many hamburgers you actually sell. So the dependent one is your number of sales. Your independent variable would be the hamburgers, which was H. So again, my dollar amount of sales will change, and it's depending on how many hamburgers are sold. So the dollar amount of sales S is the dependent. Number 14, the pounds P of flour you buy and the number of bread loaves, B, you want to make. Which one is your dependent? Which one is going to depend on the other? The pounds of flour you buy and the number of loaves of bread that you make. So my dependent would be what? The bread loaves. Okay, your independent is the number of pounds, because your bread doesn't know how many loaves it's going to make until it knows your number of pounds. Number 15. The temperature T of water and the number of minutes M the water is in the freezer. Which one's going to have the biggest change? Which one is going to be depending on the other? My temperature is my dependent because it's depending on the amount of minutes the water is in the freezer. So my independent would be my minutes. All right, let's continue. Look at number 20. The dependent variable G represents the growth of a plant. What variables can represent independent variables in this situation? So, in other words, what can represent independent variables in my situation? So, think about plants. In order for them to grow, what do they need? They need sunlight and they need water. So what variables can represent independent variables in this situation? So in other words, what doesn't really care about the plant, but the plant cares about it, okay? So my independent variables would be the amount of sunlight, and the amount of water. So remember, these are kind of like factors that influence the plant's growth. But these actually don't really care. I mean, they care, but they don't care. They can technically stand alone. And since it says variable, let's put a variable with them. So the amount of sunlight, we could say, could represent S. And the amount of water, we could say, could represent W. Okay, look at page 240. On page 240, we're going to look at number 23. The cost of a salad at a restaurant depends on many factors. Can you come up with two independent variables that could affect the cost of a salad? So what exactly would make a salad cost like a change in my salad cost? So if that's confusing, let me say it again. What makes the cost of a salad be higher? Like you charge more for this salad, or it would be like a lower cost. What like factors would affect the cost of a salad? So we could say one could be the size of the salad, because if I get a large salad, that's probably going to cost more than if I get like a half salad. Can you come up with one more? What's one more factor that affects the cost of like a salad if you went to a restaurant? Maybe the type of salad. So if you went and got like a grilled chicken salad with all these random toppings, but then somebody else just got like a plain house salad, those are two different types of salads that can affect the cost. Look at number 25. The number of incorrect answers and the score on a math test are related. Which one would be the dependent variable? Which one's going to have the biggest change? My incorrect answers or the actual score? Which one has the biggest change? So the one that's depending on the other, hopefully you said was the score. The score is depending on how many problems you get correct or incorrect. So what does that mean? The more incorrect answers, the lower the score, right? So the more incorrect answers, the lower the score. Look at the assessment practice at the bottom of the page. Jonas is concerned about the amount of water he uses to wash his laundry. He made a table to show the number of gallons of water used by different washing machines to complete a load of laundry. So look at the chart to the right. He has 3 different types of washing machines. And it says the age of the washing machines by the years. So age means like how long the washing machine has been there or how long it has lasted so far. So the very first one, older top loading, has been around for 6 years. And it holds 42 gallons of water. The new standard model has been around for 4 years and it holds 28 gallons of water. The energy efficient one has been around for 2 years and it has 14 gallons of water that it can hold. Looking at the table, can you figure out which one is the independent variable and which one is the dependent? So think about it. The number of gallons of water used is probably depending on what? The age of the washer in years. So your dependent variable would represent, we're going to go with G, your gallons of water. Because my gallons of water are depending on age of washing machine, like how many years it's been around, okay? So the independent variable would represent your, we'll go for A, the variable A, the age of your washing machine. Okay, look at part B. Use variables to represent the dependent variable and the independent variable in this sentence. Jonas records the total cost of the water he uses and the number of gallons of water that he uses. Which one do you think has the biggest change? Your gallons of water or the cost that you would use, that you would pay? You know that your dependent is your cost. We'll put C for cost. Why is it the cost? Because the cost depends on how many gallons of water is used. So the independent variable would be your gallons, which we'll say is G. That is the end of Topic 4, Lesson 8. Remember, today you went over independent and dependent variables. When you're done with this workbook, go ahead and close the workbook, pass it forward. Front row friends, go put it on the shelf. There is time remaining in class today, so you need to pick back up on your iReady teacher-assigned lessons for math. Please be mindful that these can be for a grade, so you need to try your best.